Okay, so let's take a quick look at what happens if a monopoly were to become a perfectly competitive firm. For whatever reason, the AP test likes to include questions on what would happen if a monopoly were to suddenly become perfectly competitive, or vice versa. What if a perfectly competitive firm were suddenly to become a monopoly? Because you know that a company like Microsoft could suddenly just randomly become a cucumber farm. So while this doesn't happen in the real world, for whatever reason, it's viewed as a good theoretical exercise. So we will take a look at it, because I can almost guarantee you will see something like this if you take the AP exam in May. So the major difference between a perfectly competitive firm and a monopoly is the difference in the demand curve. All right, the demand curve is above the marginal revenue curve in a monopoly, whereas it is they're the same, Mr. DARP, for a perfectly competitive firm. Not only that, but in a perfectly competitive firm, they're usually horizontal. In a monopoly, which is what this graph is, we have a profit because we produce at MR equals MC, which is right here. We go down, we see the quantity monopoly is there. The price monopoly is up here where it intersects demand, and where it intersects cost creates our little profit box. And then we also have that triangle of inefficiency, which is our dead weight loss. So if you are asked the question, what would happen if a monopoly were suddenly to become a perfectly competitive firm? The main difference is, again, marginal revenue is not equal to demand. So if it was to become perfectly competitive, the marginal revenue curve would disappear. And what we would get is demand would be equal to marginal revenue, like it is for a perfectly competitive firm. So that recalibrates what we have to look at for in terms of how we produce. We produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. That is now where demand equals marginal cost. And therefore, the quantity we would produce as a perfectly competitive firm is greater than the quantity of a monopoly. Also, the price would have gone down some, and now is over here. Price, perfectly competitive. So the price goes down. I'll erase this little box since it's probably confusing you. The price goes down, the quantity goes up. So when a monopoly goes to becomes a perfectly competitive firm, we see our price, what am I doing here? Our quantity is greater and our price goes down. Now you could be asked the question going the other way. What if a perfectly competitive firm were to monopolize the industry? Well, then the answer would be in reverse. The answer would be that the firm would produce less quantity because monopolies are less efficient, and it would produce it at a higher price. So again, this is not a real world situation, but it is almost definitely something you will see on your AP exam, and therefore you should be aware of how that works. Okay, bye.